Ladies and gentlemen, Apple has recently had just a ton of negative PR from things like COO Jeff Williams stepping down or at least announcing his retirement, to Meta poaching Apple's top AI person in the company whose name I'm going to put on screen, or obviously things that have been way bigger than that, like Apple Intelligence and the blunder that was, or even the recent court loss against Epic Games. There has just been so much negative PR over these last few months, really. And I know places on Wall Street, a lot of places along the street are trying to say that Apple is starting to take a step back and they're considering downgrading its equity rating and things like that. There's just, all in all, a lot of people hating on Apple. People I work with in my office say how much they hate Apple because they don't innovate and all of that. And I do genuinely think that is consensus amongst a lot of modern people who aren't like big techies. I personally beg to differ, though. I mean, yes, it is obvious that they have had some blunders recently, especially in the AI department, especially with some shakeups internally. And that is 100% true, and those things happen. But I don't think that Apple themselves are in, I guess you could say, an overall downfall. I mean, if you think about it, it's not like Apple is going to fail tomorrow. But I do think what we recently saw was a major decline from what we have seen. I think we saw Apple at its peak over time, and now we're seeing it go back into a lull. Craig Federighi and Greg Joswiak explained it pretty well in a recent discussion that they had. I think it was with the Wall Street Journal at WWDC, where they said they've seen all sorts of periods within Apple. They've seen highs, they've seen lows, they've seen pullbacks and areas for improvements. And they think this is a time that they could grow from. And frankly, I do think so too. I don't think any of the things that Apple has blundered from are completely irreversible to the brand. People step down. People get poached by other companies in Silicon Valley. Yes, occasionally things are promised that don't get delivered. I mean, the last time we saw that was AirPower. Now we're seeing it again with something that is definitely worse, because there was threats of it being vaporware. There was also talks, obviously, of it being something that was completely false advertising to sell the iPhone 16. And I know that Apple has already entered into a lawsuit over that. So yes, there are things that have happened that are definitely not good for the company, but I don't think that means that they are, this is Apple's fall from grace. You got to think about all the things that they have done, the things that they are continuing to do, and where I think the company themselves are going and industries they're tapping into. If you look at the AirPods industry in and of itself, that industry is so large that it encompasses other companies in charge of its market cap, in terms, I should say, of its market cap. Apple is excelling in the headphone market. They're also excelling in other ways, in other innovations, things like the Apple Vision Pro. Even though it may have been a commercial flop, that technology is very strong and promising for future hardware iterations. Today, we just got the news, actually, that there's rumors that Apple is working on a version 2 of the Vision Pro with the M4 chip and more comfortable headbands and things like that. I think that proves that Apple is going to continue to step into the virtual reality or spatial computing industry overall. That's something that we are definitely seeing. Apple recently made some ambitious changes to the iPad lineup, especially with iOS 26 and iPadOS 26. It's clear that they're entering into a new direction, a new computing direction with it. Yes, they have been for a while, but I think Apple really set themselves in motion for what's to come in the future with hardware releases and software releases on that front. Kind of like how I mentioned in one of my most recent videos talking about iPadOS 26, that Apple sees the iPad as the car, where they see Mac as the truck. They don't want to create a spork, they want a spoon, and they want a fork. They don't want something exactly to do both of them and like try to achieve the same thing. They want one that's good at this, one that's good at this. I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but I think that's definitely a step forward. I think even, yes, okay, yeah, publicly, and it's going to be a PR disaster if they ever announce that they are going to be acquiring or at least teaming up with Anthropic or OpenAI to step into the LLM or AI space, like the recent reports have said that they are going to that they're going to change from this smarter Siri to just possibly acquiring OpenAI or something like that, or maybe not even acquiring, just teaming up with them. So that is something that we've seen people see that as a negative. I actually think that's kind of a good thing. Apple at its heart is a hardware and software company. They make great hardware and they make operating systems to run that great hardware. They may not be the best AI as far as like LLMs are concerned, or, advanced multimodal language models and things like that. But they do use machine learning in a lot of their apps in very great ways that we do not notice. I think they're going to continue to do that. I think just publicly on the Siri front, they're going to partner with OpenAI and stuff like that. I actually think for a consumer, that is a great thing. But that's not the only place they've also been excelling lately. I mean, some of those things aren't them excelling, just some of those are just some strong points. I also think they're obviously and clearly taking a big step forward in the television and movie industry. We saw something like that with F1. We saw something like that with shows like Severance. We've seen that time and time again lately with Apple TV and their services. By the way, those services are continuing to absolutely dominate. iPhone market share is still gigantic in the United States, and I don't think it's really going anywhere anytime soon, because iOS itself has such a mainstay within at least US consumers, and even abroad it's starting to grow more and more, except for some places. All in all, what I'm getting at is Apple, with their $1 trillion valuation, $3 trillion or whatever it is now, and honestly, roast me in the comments for not knowing that, sure, but they're not going anywhere. Yes, I think they are in a little bit of a lull, and I think they've had some public mishaps lately, but I would not say that they are in a downfall. Yeah, maybe these things will scare the market, and they're starting to price in some of these changes for sure. That's happening. We're seeing it happen a little bit right now, and all the shops on Wall Street are starting to slowly downgrade Apple, or at least talk about doing so. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are in a full-on downward spiral. It just means right now, let's set proper expectations and hopefully they innovate more. I mean, I'm very excited about the future for Apple, especially with things like the patent that recently came out for a potential sensor that has 20 stops of dynamic range. If you want to see that video, it is on the channel, so be sure to get subscribed for that. I think also in general, the idea of them stepping into maybe the foldable market. Yes, that's not exactly the most revolutionary thing or something. It's not like the next one more thing, but it is very exciting. I cannot wait for the iPhone Fold. That is a product that I know I'm buying the day the pre-order opens. I'm definitely buying that because I don't really like slab phones. I really want that hybrid because I use this tech a lot. That's just me. So that's definitely something as well. I think they're going to continue to excel in the iPad market. I think with the M1 or the M series chips overall, the sky is the frickin' limit with what they could do to their computers on both the Mac side and the iPad side. I think we're going to continue to see some incredible innovation there. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface of that. I think Apple could also, like I said, go down, as I mentioned with the stops of dynamic range, go down the camera market, whether they do integrate it into these phones or whether they actually build their own standalone camera. I'm using an FX30 right now. Maybe, by chance, they're going to step into something like that. Look, I think all of this is a very exciting time for Apple. Yes, it is obvious that there has been some blunders, but overall, I don't think those blunders are anything too detrimental. Like, what's the worst? Their software has been a little laggy. What's the worst? They promised more AI in their phones and rolled it back because they didn't want it to be they wanted it to be perfect, and it wasn't. I actually can see that kind of as a positive, aside from the vaporware and false advertising stuff. I think overall they're taking good internal steps. I do think this is a time for them to potentially learn, because from what I've heard from people who I know that work there and just in general, obviously Steve Jobs' level of secrecy has led to really bad communication internally between teams, which leads to staggered product launches, weird product launches where it doesn't fit exactly within the rest of the ecosystem for that year, and things like that. I think if they could fix some of those problems, and I think they will over time, they're going to be just as great as they once were. Maybe not the same magic as under Steve Jobs, because it's hard to relive that. But Tim Cook has brought the supply chain of this company to a whole different direction, and they're continuing to do so. It's not like they're losing money. They've just had some bad PR. And I think that's really the fact of the matter of this. I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't think they're even in a bad downward spiral, but I do think they've had some public relations nightmares lately that need to get sorted out for sure. So that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Yeah, I was stumbling around a little bit in this video, but I gotta be honest, I'm used to talking about like TV shows, and I'm used to talking about reviewing things off the cuff. So when it comes to like news and opinions on the news, I'm still trying to find my voice here. So I appreciate you sticking around if you have all the way to the end. Definitely comment a dolphin on this video so I know you've stuck around. And be sure to get subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate your support. Today is, I think I created this channel around a month ago, and we just hit our, I believe it's 18th subscriber, which is exciting. This is a new sort of medium for me to talk about something, but I've always been a big tech freak. So I'm very excited to actually start this channel that I've been wanting to start, God, since it had to have been since middle school for me. I had to have been 13. I'm now 28 years old. So I've been wanting to do this for years, and I've posted on YouTube and other varieties forever, but never about Apple, just because I never knew how to do it. But I think I've spent enough time in front of the camera to know what to do, and it's going to be a little rusty in the beginning, but I think we're going to get there. Anyway, that's my tangent. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.